Hello, welcome to Drawing with Clifford. Today we're going to be doing a grid and tonal drawing of a Hercules beetle. So, what you're going to need today, nice simple, you're going to need a pencil, a sharpener, a rubber, and actually a cotton bud. So we're going to use a cotton bud for blending. Now I'll talk more about it in a second. But you're also going to need an image for what you're going to be drawing from. And to do the grid method, we're going to split it into eights. Now, you can do it any way you want, you can do it in half, quarters, whatever. But I'm going to do eights. Here's one I've done on the computer to make it very clear, rather than doing it with a pencil, but just to make it nice and simple for you guys to see. So once I've done that, I then have to do this on the paper. So don't have to use a ruler. I'm going to do it nice and loose, very light, and just get an impression of that grid on my page. You can use a ruler if you want, you can measure up, but I don't see the need of it. I'm just going to draw it straight on. Heck, it doesn't have to be neat. You know what, I made a mistake on the back, I'm just going to use that one instead, just to make a point. So, one thing a lot of people get confused with grid drawing, they think you have to do a box at a time. That's not what the grid's for. It's for measuring up the shape and looking at the image. So, what I'm going to do, we'll use the grid and pinpoint where I see they are on the picture and join those dots up. What that allows me to do is pinpoint, and remember that pinpoint, because we're putting pins on the points, pun intended, to locate where certain parts of the picture are in relation to the page. If I was to do this on a square bit of paper, I would probably need a square photograph. So my piece of paper relates to the shape I'm drawing from, so it's a portrait rectangle, so my grid has to be on a portrait rectangle so the boxes match up. So you can see here, I'm just looking at the picture, identifying the shape, and I'm doing my very loose light lines. And that's very important because everything I draw now, I need to be prepared to refine it and change it if I make a mistake. So I'm already noticing this, I made this a bit too thick, so I'm going to draw over the top, change it a bit so I know what to do later. And just looking at the image and see where it relates on the page. The idea of this trick is that if you try identifying the whole picture, you're going to make more mistakes, but if you break it into sections, it makes it a lot easier. I've already noticed a mistake I've made, but I'll fix it later. It's the circular bit on the horn. I think I've made it a bit too thick, but we can change that later. It's all fine. So, just going to do a little bit of refining around here, just changes, and looking back at the picture every chance I get. There we go. Just so I don't forget, we'll change that bit over here. And I'm just going to look back at the picture and see where it is related to the grid. So notice it pops down here, join those two up, and that's the body of the beetle. That's already looking pretty good. Now, one thing I also like to do is just identify, any direct changes of tone. So this line here is just identify where the dark and light starts, and just a few extra horns on my Hercules beetle. There's a few creases down here on the shell, some lumps and bumps, and I make it very clear, when it comes to a tonal drawing, creases are your friends. They make it so much easier. So one thing I also like to do as well is, if I'm working on a tonal drawing, I like to get a colour version for the shape, a black and white for the, show me where the light and dark go, because if you've got unlimited printing credits or you're printing at home, never hurts to have an extra picture. So if I'm doing a painting, I print one image without any colour on it, I print one, the original, and then I do one with heightened colour. That means an over-exaggeration of blues, magenta, cyan and yellow, so blue, pink and yellow. So what I'm doing at this point, I'm just identifying, and this is one reason I picked this image, I love how it's broken down into loads of little shapes. For example, it's not just a leg, it's loads of obscure circular shapes brought together to make a limb. So looking back at the picture, identifying all these shapes, changing the shell a bit based on how I've looked back and forth. I also like to keep a picture of it without the grid, just to help me join it all back up. Maybe if you've done your lines too thick and you want to see how they join up, it never hurts. So I'm just adding all those shapes on. I think I've missed a few, but it's enough to work with. Let's get a few of these little creases back on. And as I've always said, the basic shape is like a pizza. This is my base. Now, It's not worth putting any of your tone on until your base is absolutely fine. I've realised I missed a limb there, but you know, I can go back to that later. But now it's time to add the tone on. So, get your cotton bud ready for the blending. Now we don't use our fingers because our fingers are very oily. It doesn't matter how well you clean them or wash them, but it's better to smudge with either a smudge stick, wrap a bit of paper, or in this case, a cotton bud. So what I'm going to do here, before I do any form of smudging, I'm going to identify my dark tones. So I'm using this also to refine the shape of the shell. I might use my rubber in a bit to take a bit off, but yeah, let's just neaten up a bit there. But I'm not just going around the lines, I'm looking at my picture and this is the darkest tone on that point, so I'm just separating those areas. The aim of this image actually is to get rid of all these lines. We don't want to see these bold, cartoon-like lines around that image. We just want it to be pure tone. So I'm just going to practice my tone here. So just to remind you, when you do your dark tone, it's a tiny, start with really tiny lines close together with a lot of pressure, and as you get lighter, you spread the lines out and you put less pressure on. So I'm just going to build this up. Just going to go over there. Now this bit might be time consuming, but as I've always said, the more time you spend on it, the better it's going to look. I try to rush these drawings and do it in one go, but that's just because I'm trying to make this as something a doable task for students to do at home. As I said, normally I'd use my fancy different range of pencils, but today I'm just using a HB. As I'm always doing, because I'm assuming that at home you've only got a HB, you've only got a rubber, you've only got a sharpener. This is showing you that we can make fantastic pieces of art with just whatever we've got. So just going to build up this tone. Let's say if I was going to do this with my fancy range of pencils, for my dark tone I'll be using a B pencil, sorry, a higher B, so a 6B or a 4B, because it's more brittle. That's what the B stands for. And it will create a darker tone. Whereas if I was going to do my light tones, I'd use a high number of H. So I'd use maybe a H4 and H6 to light it. And believe it or not, if you just quite explain how these pencils work, HB is the middle range, a H2 is a little bit lighter. It means it's more hard. It means the actual lead in it is a lot harder. So that's what H stands for. H2 it gets a bit harder. H6 is even harder than that. And 10 is probably the hardest one I've got in my case at the moment. Same with a B pencil. If I want to make it darker, because it means it's more brittle. That means it takes more part. It just looks dark on the page. You start with your 2B, which gets a bit darker. 4B is even darker than that. 6B is even darker, and so on. Yeah, so this whole experiment, I'm just using a HB pencil, not changing or anything like that. I'm just going to use my cotton bud just to blend it. So it's all about controlling the pressure, really, for this image. So you can see I'm just putting a lot of pressure on that point. I'm actually going to blend that out, get some of that lighter tone. But here's one thing as well that most people forget, is when you do your smudging, don't forget to draw back into it. Because once you smudge, you lose that dark tone, so you have to reapply it if you want to get that nice tonal range. If you just smudge it and leave it, you end up with a grey cloud. So, you see, I smudge, and in a minute I'm going to go back into it, like that. Let's say a drawing's not about just doing all in pencil, then all in smudging, or in paint. It's about going back and forth and refining it. Tiny little scribbles, refine it. And then say, really good thing about the rubber, it's because we're not using a white pencil or anything else like that, just making this as simple as can. You can actually use a rubber to record any light tone. So you just remove the dark tone. It's not just about mistakes. You can make it all dark first and then remove it if you want to get a nice white line in there without leaving a dark outline around it. But the great thing about this beetle, you've got all this lovely reflection and all these extra creases. That's going to make it look slightly sustained. So this little two little horns over here have got some trapped darkness. So I'm going to record that on there to build that up. Now once you've got your basic shape, try a bit to ignore the lines. In the end result, you don't want to see the grid. I might rub these off in a bit after I've done this, but you just want to kind of, I'm just going to rub it off now, make life easier. You just want to kind of imagine it's one solid shape now, but you've got your basic shape, just build it up. So the analogy I started talking about earlier is like, it's like a pizza. You've done your base and now we're adding our toppings, and the toppings are our detail. And if you don't get your base right, there's not really worth putting your toppings on, because it's just going to end up being a mess anyway, and you'll waste twice as much ingredients. So before you put any tone on, make sure you fix your shape first. You'll just end up restarting the whole thing. So you can see I'm just constant. Now, this got a bit annoying. At this point, my cat's just literally walked on the table and I've had to kick her off. So I'm very, very sorry about the technical issues. So I'm just going to get her out of the way and we're back. Sorry about that, guys. So no real changes. I'm just going to add this tone here. Dark tone on top. And now what I'm going to kind of try doing in a second is I'm going to try using directional lines, because it's quite a big solid shape and I have to make sure my pencil going in the right direction. So I'm just going to do some dark scribbles around here and I'm going to try some longer ones in a second. I'm just going to get out a little crease in there as well. Very, very dark at the top, so I'm going to build those up in layers. It's got a little bit of white reflection there. Just looking back, let's go back to this. Yeah, I'm just going to build up this tone here. Remember, always look back at your original picture. And I'm going to kind of leave that for a second. And I'm still not 100% happy with the shell. I think I might have missed a bit. So let's just get a bit of tone, dark tone up there. I say, build it up in layers. And a trusty smudge stick, use the dark side. It just means you haven't got to draw anything else. You know, if you've got it on there, use it. Just blend those in. So if we overblend, we've got the chance of using our rubber to kind of pull those light tones back in. I can always, if it goes a bit too light, just add my pencil and make it darker. It's already starting to come together. Build this dark area down here to see the contrast between light and dark. And one little trick I like to do is using the rubber, you kind of just create a bit of that tone, that light reflection, and a bit of texture. And just remember, if you rub out or smudge, draw back into it, just to kind of help bring out those light darks. Now I actually remembered here, I forgot to draw in the little part of the wings that was seeping out of the shell. So I'm just going to draw those back on. And blimey, I forgot about this little dark shell, this little darker horn over here. So I'm going to draw that back on, get a dark tone. Let's say, if you notice something that you missed out, don't wait, fix it then and there. It's not worth leaving it. These lovely little dents into the top of the horn as well. Get those in with a few little black dots. Just brings it alive a bit. Fix this before I move on. And as I said, if you ever see something that you don't like in your drawing, go back and fix it. I know if you're already holding halfway something else, just before you forget. Just notice these little hand bits as well, just need a bit of that dark tone. So now I can go back to this, and this is really dark on my picture, so I'm going to go for a nice, flat, kind of like solid grey tone. You might be thinking, oh, he's cheating, he's just going to colour it all in black. The idea around this is actually to create contrast to the shell above, because obviously the darker I make this, it'll make the shell above look lighter. As you can see, the shell's looking a bit too dark at the top. Now I've done this, it just makes it just look like a little bit, that light reflection just stand out a little bit more. just forgot a section on this arm here because I thought, because for me it just looked a bit too dark. So I'm just going to lighten that up. Not completely black. Yeah, you can see where I've started doing the shape. Now, I've completely missed out this part of the leg here, so I'm going to use the rubber to record the light tone back in. And I'm just going to do the dark tone as it goes down. This leg is a lot longer than it should be, so I'm just going to draw that shape back on. As you can see, where that bit of white I've rubbed out there gives out the impression of the top part of the leg. It's already starting to come to life. I'm just going to record all the creases and lumps and bumps on the legs. Just get the dark tones on first before I blend those out. Just use my cotton bud just to get those light reflections on. So we don't want to make it too light because it will make the light reflection on the top of the beetle look a bit dim. So we want to make sure it's just a little bit darker. Just build it bit by bit. All these lovely little creases. Now I'm not going to worry too much about the tone of this because the texture does it for me. I forgot about this back leg here, so let's just add a little bit of refinement down here. Get a nice bit of texture. Use the edge of that, and yeah, let's just rub out the background. So we don't want to. The grid's done its job. Let's get rid of it. Clear it up. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that. Now I think I need to just up just a little bit more. So I'm going to take my rubber. Compared to my last one, I think I need a few more light reflections of light tone. So compared to the original image, take my rubber, just put those in. But other than that, I'm really happy with it, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this too. So make those changes, and yeah, good luck in your drawing, and I'll see you soon. Have fun.